Welcome to the Blackhawks Breakaway Podcast, brought to you by Toyota. Toyota has more all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive vehicles than any other brand. Find yours and shine on. Toyota, let's go places. From the CHSN Podcast Studios, Charlie Roumeliotis, Pat Boyle with you. How you doing today, Charlie?
The streak continues. 5-game point streak for the Blackhawks.
4-0-1, and they're finding ways to win without significant players in the lineup. Over the last couple of weeks, we've seen Dickinson out. We've seen 𝗗cie out. We saw Nazar out for a couple of games. Now the captain, Nick Foligno, is going to be on the shelf for about a month with a hand injury. It was 𝗗cie𝘄ဖိ𝗹 earlier than that, a couple weeks ago. So that's kind of like, one thing is next man up, but when they're key cogs to the penalty kill or the power play or top six or whatever they are, these are significant roles that are being subtracted, and the Hawks are still finding a way to fill it and to win.
So we just got back from practice Monday afternoon, and we're recording this, and Jeff Blashill had a 10-minute media availability, and we did a little injury, asked him about some injury updates at the beginning. A couple other questions got asked, and then I was getting ready to ask a question, and we went at the same time. This is how much Pat and I are on the same wavelength. My question exactly was going to be to Jeff Blashill was, you've been dealing with all these different injuries up front. Some players are playing higher in the lineup. Some players are playing penalty kill, power play, moving in different roles. And the Hawks have not skipped a beat. It's been so impressive to watch.
And a lot of it's been like game time decision or in-game, losing players in-game. So like they're not even getting like a practice in with the new unit and the way the new PP1 looks or what have you. They're adjusting completely on the fly.
Exactly. And they're not disrespectful. They're not like depth players. These are like important pieces that like 𝗗cie𝘄ဖိ𝗹 is a shutdown guy, penalty kill. Nick Foligno is a guy that they lean heavily on in the faceoff department. Tyler 𝗗cie participated in the morning skate against Toronto, but then he's just unavailable to play in the game tonight. So they were preparing for him to play. Then he gets subtracted from the lineup. Ryan Green steps up. He scores the first goal of the game, and it's so impressive. I don't know if it's a combination of Jeff Blashill pressing all the right buttons, in addition to the players having a confidence and belief system within each other, and so it's been really impressive to watch.
One of those guys returning to the lineup was Frank Nazar against Toronto, and you wonder too with other injuries if guys are kind of pressed into action a little earlier than they definitely don't want to be out. Like Jason Dickinson, we were talking to him, and he felt he came back too soon a couple of weeks ago, and then that led to him being on the shelf. He's like, that's not fair for anybody. It's not fair for my teammates. It's not fair to me. It's not fair to the training staff. So I think he's going to be extra cautious on this one. That's why we won't see him Tuesday night against Calgary. But I was impressed with Nazar and his ability to make that great pass to set up 𝗗cie𝘄ဖိ𝗹 in his first game returning to action.
Yeah, he was really impressed. I felt like he got better as the game went on. Like I didn't notice him too much in the first period, and then in the second and thirds, I thought he was much better. And how about Frank Nazar? So we were at practice on Friday, and it very clearly looked like he re-bothered the injury that he suffered in Calgary. Now, after the practice, Jeff Blashill said he was the predetermined plan was for him to leave after that drill, because I think they were starting to get into some battle drills, and Nazar wasn't going to participate in that. But he certainly looked bothered by the injury that he was dealing with. And so when I saw that, I was like, there's no chance he's going to play on Saturday. Well, then he gets ruled a game time decision. He's on the ice for morning skate, and he plays. And I'm thinking, okay, the injury that Nazar is dealing with clearly is just a pain tolerance point at this moment. It's not like the Blackhawks wouldn't throw him into the lineup if there's risk of him re-injuring whatever is bothering him. That would, he would suffer a setback. And I actually think this might be part of the growing process for these young players, is learning how to power through an injury that is pure pain tolerance. I think we saw that last year, or maybe the year before, with Alex 𝗵lase. He was suffering an injury and he wasn't at his best. And it was one of those things where it wasn't an injury that he could it could potentially sideline him down the road if he played through it. It was just a pain tolerance thing. And so when you get to playing important games in March and April and into the playoffs, you have to find ways to power through that. And for Frank to just say, to leave practice uncomfortably on Friday, then play in the game on Saturday and make a terrific play on the Teuvo Teravainen goal.
And out there in the PK, with Foligno down, they needed even more. And so those are hard minutes.
And he took that defensive zone draw in the final minutes of regulation because there's Nick Foligno, and he won it cleanly on John Tavares, who's one of the best in that face-off department. And so I just thought it was a really impressive performance by Nazar, because I left practice thinking Nazar's for sure not playing on Saturday. And then he plays, and it's like, that's a guy that's like, you want to be in the trenches with.
Well, think about it from their perspective, the younger players' perspective. They have some built-in recovery time in the AHL. They usually play Friday, Saturday, maybe a Sunday, and then they're off until the following Thursday or Friday as far as games go.
Yeah.
And so if you're nicked up, you've got a 4 or 5 day window in there where you can get better. Same thing goes if you're playing collegiate hockey. And so, but National Hockey League, not so much. You're playing usually every other night, certainly every third night, and you don't have those built-in places where you can get better and recuperate without missing action. So it's just another cog that's added to the young players' process of keeping their body ready to go, or when to push, when to play hurt. Like Dickinson obviously was like, I shouldn't have been playing at that point in time.
Yeah.
But if you can't do any further damage and it's just a pain tolerant situation, like you were mentioning with what we expect with Nazar or suspect, then it's just, can the player grit through that?
Yeah, and Dickinson's been around long enough to know how his body is reacting on certain things. And I think somebody asked him point blank, who's going to make that final call when you're going to return? And he's like, me, because he knows his body. And that's a different situation, obviously, from Nazar, because Dickinson's saying, I tried to power through it the first time, and I probably should not have, because I re-injured it and re-aggravated it, and then I was putting my teammates in a bad situation where now he's missing multiple weeks, and so the in and out of the lineup is unfair. And so with the Dickinson injury, his is more, he needs to make sure that he's 100% so that he doesn't re-injure it. Nazar's injury, what we suspect, is pain tolerance, and he's finding a way to push through it. And so it's just been impressive to see Nazar, but also the maturity of Dickinson to say, all right, I should probably step back, because me being in and out of the lineup is actually affecting my team in a negative way too.
So on Tuesday night, the Hawks are going to go back to 11 forwards and 7 D-men. Sam Rinzel had been a healthy scratch for the first time on Saturday, and so he'll be back in the lineup. He'd been on the ice for some goals against. They're talking about, when he should stay in the neutral zone or in the defensive zone or in the offensive zone trying to keep a play alive, and when he's got to be the 5th player that has to be back if there's somebody who's cheating behind him. I think best case scenario, Rinzel's situation of going from a healthy scratch to getting back in this lineup and performing at a high level, as 𝗗cie said, he's played well this year as an NHL defenseman. So it's not like we're looking for this. We haven't seen it. We've seen it in 11 and 7 format, not unlike Artyom Levshunov, who was a healthy scratch a couple weeks ago and arguably played his best game against the Leafs on Saturday night.
Yeah, that was Artyom Levshunov's game on Saturday. It looked like that was by far the best game that Levshunov has played as a member of the Blackhawks. I mean, he was controlling play, skating with confidence. I don't know how he still hasn't scored his first NHL goal, because he's been around it, man. And he was even joking around today. I went up to him and I was like, man, you're close. And he thinks it's coming soon, and I expect it to come soon with the way that he's playing. I mean, talk about a bounce back from, a really challenging first 2 games on the road trip. He's a healthy scratch. The Hawks, after that game, start going 11 and 7. So the Hawks went 14 straight games going 11 forwards, 7 defensemen. And a part of me thinks a big reason why is they need to shelter Artyom Levshunov to make him put him more in offensive role type situations. And then they can give 𝗗cie𝘄భి𝗹cie, who is the 7th defenseman, more defensive situations. Boy, has that worked out beautifully, not just for Levshunov, but for 𝗗cie as well. And if you're a guy like Sam Rinzel, you can see the Levshunov bounce back from the home opener scratch and say, okay, I think that's the situation that I need to get to as well, where I'm feeling confident, I'm controlling the play. I think the Hawks just want to cut down the scoring chances against Rinzel. It feels like when he's been on the ice lately, there have been some odd man rushes going his way. I think with the puck, he's still okay. Like he's still been fine. He could probably get to a different level, but it was trending in this direction, right? Like his ice time started to decrease. He went from power play 1 to power play 2. Then he got removed from the power play in the morning skate on Saturday, and then we find out he's a scratch. And so I have no concerns about Rinzel. He actually did a media scrum today after practice, and after the cameras went away, I kind of looked at him and I said, "You're going to be fine." And he's just like, shoulders up. He's like, I'm not worried. I'm going to be just fine. Like, he's a really confident kid, so I'm not worried about his confidence taking a hit from this. I think he actually is going to be motivated to want to follow the Levshunov path here.
Yeah, and to finish the full thought on Artie, we've both gone up to him and have had casual interaction with him, and by casual, because there's a language barrier there, and you don't know if necessarily he understands. And so I asked Blashill, where is that at between him? Because sometimes when I talk to Artie, I get the nod like he knows what I'm saying, but I kind of go, I don't know if that's the nod of somebody who understands what he. So imagine getting information from a coaching staff. When they nod, does he really get it? And so he said that is progressing, and he's starting to be able to read when he really gets it and when he needs to re-explain it to him.
For sure. And I think with Levshunov, he had a tough training camp in the first week or so of the regular season. Like, I think he was really having a hard time grasping the system that Jeff Blashill,
which had to be, for
everyone.
It was hard enough for the English-speaking players and the veterans for him to have limited language, English use of the English language. It had to be extra difficult
for sure. And for a guy that like Levshunov, Blashill was trying to get the structure in order. And Levshunov's game is anything but structure. He just plays totally off instincts. And Blashill was even explaining a play from the game on Saturday against Toronto. I can't remember what play he was talking about. Was it the Levshunov primary assist to Ryan Green when he thought Levshunov should have shot it? He's like, shoot, Artie. Then he passed it, and he's like, oh, nice play.
Yeah.
So he's like, Blashill is actually enforcing to Levshunov. I think he said this on the road trip, on the 6-game road trip. He said, we have told Levshunov, do what you think is the right play. Don't do what you think we want you to do there. Because when you're playing off your instincts, that's when we think that you're going to be at your best. And so maybe there were times at the beginning of the season or in training camp where Levshunov was getting in trouble, and there were some times that Blashill was laying into him specifically during training camp because he was messing up drills, because maybe Levshunov was thinking, what do they want me to do here? And he got away from what his instincts are telling him to do. So I think we're seeing him now finally lean into his instincts. And in the second period, specifically against Toronto, I thought he was the best player. He was flying out there, and it just seemed like such a confident skater in his ability.
So Levshunov and Green are going to get a lot of credit for that first goal against Toronto the other night, but it was the fourth line with the extended ozone time for like 40 seconds prior to the goal that wore down the Leafs, kept them out there for extended period of time defending. And it really, we've seen in the last couple of games, the Hawks' fourth line, and sometimes that's only two players and to be determined. But that Slaggert, Foligno, Lafferty line really set the table for the Green goal. And then it's also a reminder, too, of when it's smart to get off. Slaggert gets off, Green comes on, Artie makes the play around the perimeter and finds Green through the seam.
Yeah, and we talked about earlier about how everyone has been stepping up when there are injuries. Think about again, we'll make this example. Like Ryan Green was not supposed to be on the opening night roster. He's been here taking advantage. He was on the first line again Saturday.
Been on every line.
He's been on every line. Guy like Oliver Moore, he steps in after there's a spot that opens up. He's taking advantage. Landon Slaggert, he gets called up because there was an injury and he wasn't supposed to be here. And then he scores the goal a couple nights ago. Then he's part of the extended ozone shift. And then how about Sam Lafferty? He's been a healthy scratch for a majority of the season.
Yeah.
And he has that highlight reel goal. And then he follows that up with being part of that extended offensive zone shift. And so we're seeing guys respond to either not being in the lineup, being a healthy scratch, maybe not even supposed to be here in the NHL, and they're taking advantage of their opportunity. And it was great to see. I know Foligno, they're going to miss him for the next several weeks, but it was great to see Slaggert and Lafferty be part of that extended offensive zone shift so they can continue to get that confidence within themselves.
I think we're going to see an opportunity for the young leadership group of the Blackhawks to take an even bigger step here over the next month. We've always talked on this podcast how the voice of the younger player has become louder since Nazar and Levshunov were called up last year from Rockford, and how it's changed the complexion of the room as far as the leadership. Obviously, that changed a lot this year with far fewer veterans in the room and a lot more younger players entering the fold. Now, without your captain, Nick Foligno, who's even probably adjusted his role from, like he said at one point, Coach Foligno last year, to now like uncle for these guys. We're going to, and Dickinson being out,
Yep.
I think we're going to see Nazar have a bigger voice, maybe Bedard even having a bigger voice, more opportunity for growth for these guys at a early stage in their NHL career.
Yeah, and I think there was a game earlier in the year too. Can't remember which players exactly were out, but Alex Vlasic ended up wearing the A in one of the games, and I remember he was our post-game guest on WGN Radio that day, and I asked him about it. I was like, "Man, you're a Chicago kid. You're wearing an A on your sweater." And he acknowledged, he's like, "Man, I grew up watching Kane and Taves and Sharp and Keith. All those guys are wearing." He's like, "I don't feel worthy to wear it. Like, I don't think I'm in that class, but it's cool to see that maybe some new fans are coming to games and they see him in that light, even though Vlasic feels like he doesn't live up to that." And so it is starting to become I shouldn't even say starting to, but it is their locker room now.
Yeah.
And so I think in San Jose too, Macklin Celebrini wears an A. And so they've already said, "Hey, you're part of our future. You're one of our cornerstones. We want you to be a voice inside that locker room." And so I wouldn't be surprised if, as the veterans slowly start to fade out, we're going to see more of the leadership role put on guys like Bedard, Nazar, Vlasic.
We talk about the stepping up when players go down. How about rebounding when a call goes against you? And we saw that on display in the second period, which has been notoriously the Achilles heel for this Blackhawks team this year. It was again against the Leafs, and Riley ends up with the goal, but they challenge for a high stick, and they go to the situation room. And boy, the angles that CHSN provided and Sportsnet in Canada, it looks to me like Nylander has the stick on an angle with the blade above the shoulder. I talked to Connor Murphy today, and he said their explanation from the official was it hit the heel of the stick, and the heel wasn't above the shoulder line. It was just the tip of the stick was above. I mean, I'm like, if we're getting to this minutia of the actual what it takes to reverse it, take it off the books. Because if that wasn't a high stick, by all accounts, it looked like it was, then I don't know. We're just wasting everybody's time, including probably a 3 or 4 minute situation room discussion that stopped play in a game that had already been delayed at the onset.
Right. There was a controversial challenge earlier in the year. It was the Tyler Bertuzzi goaltender interference against Vancouver that didn't go Chicago's way, that everyone felt like it should have gone the Blackhawks' way. But that challenge was subjective, right? Like,
right.
Did he push the pad? Did he not? This was like, we had video evidence. Was it above the shoulders or was it not? And it very clearly looked like it was just a fraction above the shoulders. And the officials took a long time to look at it. And then they came out of the review and said, I think it was Wes McCauley that was the official, and he said the call on the ice is confirmed. Like he said confirmed with an inflection on it, not a call stands. I'm like, man, if you're looking at it that long and you come out of that, just say the call on the ice stands. Like maybe they didn't have a direct angle that was at the shoulder length, so they didn't want to, try to piece together whether a camera from just a slightly higher angle was not, I don't know.
Yeah.
But it was weird that they confirmed it and they just didn't say call stands. And so
or explain that video replay did not show that the stick blade was above the shoulder. Like, give the full extent of what we're going to find out on our own via text or email later from the league. I don't understand. In the moment, you've captivated 19,000 people for 3 or 4 minutes and the TV audience, and you don't pay off what they've been waiting for.
Right. Yeah.
Other than the result, you don't tell them how we got to the result.
Yeah. And now, like, quick clarification, not that this was in any discussion, but if you're wondering, so if you deflect a goal that's a potential high stick, if it goes directly into the net, the threshold is the crossbar, not the shoulder. The shoulder length is whether there's a high stick that doesn't lead
Anywhere
directly to a
else,
goal.
yeah.
And so that's what, if you were wondering why it wasn't the crossbar, that's not the barometer, it's the shoulder. And so,
and there was the Teuvo part. Did the puck touch Teuvo?
Right.
And it did not look like video. And that would have been another clarification that, like, and the puck did not hit Teuvo Teravainen or what have
right.
you.
And credit to the Blackhawks is what your original point was. The Hawks responded by that by killing off the penalty.
Yes.
And then they get the third period goal by Teuvo Teravainen, and then obviously go up 3-2. And so there have been several situations this year where there's like you circle, like that was a turning point. The one in Detroit last week, it was the Arvid Soderblom save on Dylan Larkin. That was like, wow, that big save. Detroit didn't score after that, or the Hawks kill, against Vancouver in that game that was controversial. The Hawks killed that off. They ended up getting a point. Unfortunately, they don't get the second one, but I have been impressed by the way the Hawks are able to just put that aside and just kill off the penalty rather seamlessly. Like, it's not like a hairy penalty kill. It was like the Hawks like really buckled down for those.
Well, and that must empower 𝗗cie to make that call,
right?
To challenge specific plays, because the PK has been fantastic. They've killed 14 of their last 14 opposition's power plays over the last 5 games. And some of them have been pretty decent power play units that they've gone up against. So, and you can get, as we've seen, you can get a change in momentum off a kill.
Yeah, and think about, you mentioned earlier that the players that the Blackhawks have been missing on the penalty kill, like Frank Nazar was gone for a few games, and Jason Dickinson obviously haven't been there. So some like key pieces on the Blackhawks penalty kill haven't been there, and the Blackhawks have still stepped up. Even in the Detroit game, Artyom Levshunov got some penalty kill time as well. So the Hawks are slowly starting to, they've really started to find a groove in the special teams department specifically.
What do you thought about the power play and adapting to different pieces? We talked about 𝗗cie being added to the left flank, and actually he missed a game over this last couple of weeks. And Artie being promoted to quarterback of power play 1, and then having Connor on the right side, which kind of been in a state of flux, has been the bumper and the net front guy because of injuries.
For sure. 𝗵𝗐 obviously missed the last game, and he's so good in that human backboard play. I think Foligno stepped into that net front role on the first power play for 𝗵𝗐. Now he's injured, so at practice today, Frank Nazar gets bumped back to the first unit. So Nazar and Teravainen were interchanging from the bumper to the net front, and it obviously depends on which side the puck is on and the down low play and all that stuff. I think a low key element of why the Blackhawks power play has been having some success though too is Levshunov has had a shoot first mentality. Like, he has a howitzer of a shot when he lets it go, and I think that also opens up some lanes. We've talked about how Connor Bedard moving to the right side of the faceoff circle has certainly the Hawks have benefited from that because it feels like every power play he gets, he fires off at that toe drag release that catches the goaltender off guard. And so that's been great. But Levshunov having more of a shoot first mentality, I think has also opened up some things for the Blackhawks power play.
Let's talk about the surprise sighting at Fifth Third Arena. Laurent Brossoit.
He lives.
You caught him on the ice at Fifth Third Arena on Monday.
Yeah, well, the Hawks have had a third goaltender on the ice who's been. I can't remember his name, but he's been around for several years where he helps train the guys in the summer. And side note, I'm wondering if the Blackhawks are doing that because he was at practice again today after Brossoit went off. I'm wondering if the Hawks are preparing for next year when they're able to travel an emergency goaltender that will be like on a little bit of a salary.
I was going to ask him that because I saw him on Friday as well.
Yes.
So he's been around quite a bit.
Yeah, so if you've been attending a Blackhawks practice and you're wondering who is that third goalie that has always been on the ice, I'm wondering if the Hawks are preparing for next year and beyond where, the Hawks, every team is going to be able to carry an emergency goaltender. So side note, but yeah, we saw Brossoit warming some players up. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's Laurent Brossoit because I recognize his paddings. But all of the writers, we were like hesitant to tweet that it was Brossoit because we just weren't sure. And then he lifted up his mask and we're like, oh, that's for sure him. And so, great to see him. He literally has not played a single game for the Hawks because he missed all of last year with a knee injury. Then he had off-season hip surgery. And so to see him on the ice, he's still likely a ways away from even returning to game action. But that had to be an encouraging thing for Brossoit personally, because I think we asked Kyle Davidson at the beginning of training camp, and we're like, is this potentially career ending? And he's like, absolutely not. Laurent wants to get back to playing. And so that has to be a great feeling for him to finally feel like he's part of the team too.
Yeah.
Like that's got to be such a weird feeling for him the last year and a half where he's just been disconnected from everything.
Yeah. His situation has to be bizarre because we could talk about other players' injuries. They've had some sort of connection to the team. They're still around. Laurent has not really been around, at least visibly to us in the locker room during availabilities. The goal, and he's got to be feeling like he's missing out. I mean, when you look at what Spencer Knight and Arvid Soderblom have done as far as the best save percentage of a tandem in the National Hockey League, it probably drives you even more to want to be a part of the mix.
For sure. And it's for him, he's probably just like, I just want to get back to playing so that I can show any team that I can still do it, right? So it's almost like an audition, not just for the Blackhawks, but for really for any team. And these things always have a way of sorting itself out. Like sometimes you're like, oh, you have to come up on a major decision, and then somebody gets hurt, and you're like, oh, perfect. Throw him into the lineup for a few weeks, and then there's another injury, and this guy returns. And so we'll see how that all sorts out. Obviously, there's no chance that Brossoit is going to thwart Soderblom as the 1B because Arvid has been unbelievable, and the Hawks maybe feel like they're trending towards having a really strong 1A, 1B tandem. But I imagine that when Brossoit is ready for some sort of game action, they would send him to Rockford for like a 2-week AHL conditioning stint.
Side note to Soderblom, I talked to him the other day about making the save on his brother Elmer, who he went up against in Detroit last weekend. A week ago. Weekend.
8 days ago.
8 days ago. And he joked about it. He said Elmer told him afterwards, he was thinking so much. And if you recall, he stick handles quite a bit on that play. And Arvid now has it as his wallpaper screensaver on his phone. He got someone sent to him a really good shot of his save on his brother Elmer. So
bragging rights. But I imagine those two players are going to be facing off against each other down the road. So if Elmer ever gets one on Arvid, he might return the favor and put the goal on his screensaver. So yeah.
So we'll see Calgary in town. Just saw him on November 7th. So any of the extracurricular activity that you had in that game may carry over. Just talking to a couple of the players, they like the fact that they're taking on the same team, knowing some tendencies as far as coverage and things of that nature. So, and that was also the game where Bedard had 4 points. He had 3 assists, right? All primaries,
all primary,
and then had that great 𝗗cie and 𝗗cie to have the goal on the 4-point night.
Yeah, I don't expect there to be any carryover from the last game because it feels like every single one of those situations sorted itself out. Like Colton Dach standing up for, after the Frank Nazar hit. Nazar leaves that game. And then Oliver Moore got hit by, I think it was Mackenzie Weegar. Vlasic steps in. He fights Mackenzie. Then Foligno ends up laying big hits on Zane Parekh and Connor Zary. Parekh is still out of the lineup for Calgary. And Foligno ends up dropping the gloves with Joel Hanley. And now Foligno is hurt. So even if somebody wanted to respond to Foligno doing what he did because Parekh is still out of the lineup, that can't happen. And so it might be physical, but I don't think it's going to be like, hey, there's still a score that needs to be settled here. I think that all got taken care of. But I imagine Calgary is certainly going to want to get that bad taste out of their mouth. And we'll see if Bedard can get back. Bedard's point streak, unfortunately, came to an end against Toronto. I still thought he played really well.
I thought he played a great game.
I mean, he played a great game.
Yeah.
So the points don't tell the real story. But I think, Connor probably still has a good feeling about that Calgary game the last time they played, and we'll see if he gets back on the score sheet.
We're noticing that nationally, the conversation of who is on the radar of Team Canada is getting momentum with, Bedard being up among the league leaders in points, along with Macklin Celebrini. Matthew Schaefer has entered the equation, too, with how well he's played in his first year. Obviously in a defenseman role. But at the end of the day, it's going to be really interesting to see if Hockey Canada and USA Hockey end up going with players that have Stanley Cup playoff experience. And, that's probably the only thing that's working against guys like Celebrini and Bedard.
Yeah, it feels like Team Canada and maybe Team USA too, they're going to be prioritizing the players that understand what it feels like to play in big games, so that way the moment isn't too big for them. Now, you certainly want to add maybe some of the young guys to the roster just to get that experience. Like, if you're Team Canada, you know that Macklin Celebrini and Connor Bedard are going to be part of Team Canada for a really long time. So maybe it's an opportunity to get at least one of them, not even like a courtesy, like, hey, let's just come see what it's like to be around, because they've both played themselves into the conversation, right? It feels like the more Connor Bedard starts to produce, like the more he could potentially be more involved in the conversation. But think about, I'm looking at Team USA, right? They're dealing with a lot of injuries right now. Both 𝗗cie brothers are out. The Jack Hughes
situation
injury
here in Chicago.
That I was listening to 32 Thoughts. Elliot Friedman, originally he was hearing that it could potentially be season ending for Jack Hughes. So that's how much worry there was going into that Jack Hughes situation. And so I wonder if, God forbid, something like that happens to Team Canada, that could potentially open the door for Connor Bedard to really be part of the conversation. Like, okay, Team Canada lost.
But like they also have people like Nick _Suzuki that are and 𝗗cie on the butt. Like it's not just the line doesn't start with Bedard and Celebrini. There's even a couple of players with experience, with skins on the wall that could possibly be ahead of them.
Right. And I think Connor Bedard, he did a couple interviews with I think NHL Network. He was on TSN's Overdrive a few days ago, and that was his point too. He's like, it would be an honor to be on the team, but I also realize Team Canada is loaded, and so there's the competitiveness that wants him. I'm sure he desperately wants to be on that team, but I think he would understand if he's not part of it, because the guys that are being left off isn't just Connor. It's guys that probably deserve to be on the team, but there's just no room for all of them.
Before we put a bow on this one, we had the first chapter of the Centennial Celebration, the originals, on Saturday night. It was a great scene, as always. I thought Patrick Sharp did a nice job in his presentation, Pat Foley as well. And it was nice to see the families of the Glenn Halls and the Stan Mikitas and the Bobby Hulls that were a part of this. And the atrium was kind of transformed into like a Blackhawks museum. And it surprised me how many people didn't know that Mikita and Hall were instrumental in bringing the curved stick to the NHL. People that I thought for sure knew that story were like learning about it. So it does have a place. It's nice to hear about the past. And when you hear things like that, it's like, and if you don't know those stories, it's like, wow, okay. I can't even imagine this league without a curved stick. But all those things were on display. And as I was driving into the United Center that night, I saw at the corner an 𝗗cie𝗱ci℗ jersey. In the same grouping, I saw a Kane jersey and a Bedard. And to me, it was like, all right, look at the generations that I'm seeing at just one stop sign.
So I usually get to Blackhawks games about 2 hours before puck drop. And I was walking towards the media gate, and there was a line wrapped around the United Center already. 2 hours before puck drop, 30 minutes before the gates actually opened, waiting because they wanted to get the 𝗗cie𝘄ဖိ𝗹cie bobblehead. And so it was incredible to see. The building was as packed as I've seen it for a regular season game in a very long time. Maybe since the 𝗗cie𝘄ဖိ𝗹cie jersey retirement night. Like, it was unbelievable atmosphere. Warm-ups was packed. Obviously, the 𝗗cie𝘄ဖိ𝗹cie in the final chapter, that being the night, was fantastic. So my post-game show ended, I think, around 9:30. The game ended at 9 o'clock. I was walking to the parking lot around 9:45. The entire parking lot was jammed bumper to bumper. And so I pulled a security guard and I said, is there an accident in the area? Like, why is there? And he was like, it was a sellout tonight, man. I was like, no, I know that. There were 20,000 plus, but I was like, it was still bumper to bumper 45 minutes after the game ended. And he's like, we're just busy. I'm like, oh yeah, that's actually how it was. Like, during the Dynasty era, like, every game was the parking lot was absolutely slammed. And so it was great to feel it's been a long time since I remember Saturday night game, 20,000 plus in attendance. The energy was high. The Hawks leave a winner, so everyone's going home happy. I mean, that felt like the old days again.
I go by the gauge of the fan that's that's kind of on the fence about hockey. Those type of people are coming up to me making comments about Bedard and this young team. When I start getting that, I know that this team has made an impression with the fan base, and we're starting to see it. We're seeing it on CHSN with ratings. I'm sure WGN Radio is as well. But it's Saturday was a unique situation because of the originals. But I feel the momentum growing for this team. And because they've been on the road so much, and a lot of them were late games, it's coming to fruition because I don't think people were locked in at the beginning of the season when they were on the road for 2 weeks and most of the games were starting at 9 o'clock.
I was at a family birthday event yesterday, and one of my cousins, who is not a Blackhawks fan at all, he's like, I can maybe name 2 or 3 guys on the team. He said he bought a CHSN subscription because he was following. He's like, man, the Blackhawks seem fun to watch. Like, I miss watching entertaining hockey, just having it on in the background. So even he, casual fan, can only name 3 players, bought a CHSN subscription literally a few days ago because he's like,
what's that? Your cousin's
George.
Name? George.
Yeah,
George. Thank you.
Gio.
Gio.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So how about that?
Yeah,
They're bringing more people in.
Makes a great holiday gift too, by the way. That's going to do it for this edition of Blackhawks Breakaway Podcast for CHSN. For Charlie Roumeliotis, I'm Pat Boyle. Thank you for watching and listening, and we will catch you next time.